There are philosophical differences between Bill Self and Jay Wright. Kansas prioritizes dominating the paint. They run plays for deep post position and for lobs. Villanova lets it fly from deep. They space the floor and give the green light to shooters. So when the two teams play each other, it's a contrast in styles. Especially this season. Almost exactly 50% of opponent shots against the Jayhawks have been from 3 this season. That ranks them 3rd worst in the country at taking away 3-point attempts. So it wasn't a shocking surprise that Villanova shot 41 of them on Saturday. In the first half especially, several of the 3-point attempts came on simple perimeter exchanges. Villanova would dribble handoff or pitch in 2-man game, and Kansas was passive on their switches. You can see Jayhawk players pointing to switch, but not actually getting out to execute the switch with aggression. In theory, switching takes away an offense's action and should therefore take away threes, but it's easier said than done. Fortunately for Kansas, Villanova didn't really shoot the ball that well on these attempts. When a switch is properly executed, then the next step for the defense is being able to contain potential mismatches, like Udoka Azubuike switched onto a guard. David McCormick was also isolated in space, and he had some good defensive moments containing quicker players. In ball screen defense, McCormick was able to guard 2 by providing support on the ball, but also not letting the roller behind him. Azubuike's ball screen coverage was a bit different. He has the tendency of committing to the ball handler, which leaves you vulnerable to giving up the roll or the spot up 3. A situation where you can clearly see the Kansas defensive emphasis is when the ball goes into the post. They double teamed with Azubuike, leaving a player open on the perimeter in favor of getting the ball out of the post player's hands. Here Villanova runs roll-replace action. Robinson Earl rolls to the basket as Swider replaces up to the top. Watch how Azubuike again prioritizes the ball handler. Because Kansas off-ball defenders aren't helping, the roller is open. But even when the roller's open, with Doak's length and athleticism, your passes have to be perfect. Now we have the same exact play, but with De Sousa guarding the screener. He stops the ball initially, and then focuses on recovering to Robinson Earl. De Sousa's coverage isn't inherently better or worse than Doak's, but it is different. Justin Moore probably doesn't even take this shot if De Sousa stays on the ball longer, but it's a trade-off between guarding the ball and guarding everyone else. When Doak has to choose between that trade-off, he usually picks guarding the ball. And it's part of the reason why Kansas is so tough to score on. They're top 5 in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, and Doak is top 30 in block percentage. But the help-first emphasis is also why they give up so many threes. The trade-off is a difficult thing to evaluate, but given that Kansas has such a force inside the paint, it probably makes sense to maximize Doak's skill set. Here are 3 of Villanova's easiest drives to the basket from Saturday. They all have one thing in common. Udoka Azubuike was on the bench. That's not to say with him in the game that these would have just automatically been blocked out of bounds. It could have led to kick-out threes instead. But when Doak is on the court, Bill Self has chosen to live with those kick-out threes this season. The last part of all of this, which is worth talking about, is that not all shooters are equal. Doak was guarding Robinson Earl for most of the game, a 31% three-point shooter. The better an opponent's 5-man is at shooting the ball, the riskier it becomes to help. It's not a coincidence that Robinson Earl took a career-high 6 threes on Saturday. An important part of three-point defense can be dictating which player takes the shot. Here's the post double, and after a Kansas miscommunication, they pretty much have no choice here but to give up a 3. McCormick could have potentially accepted that fate and just let the 31% shooter shoot, but his decision to scramble and close out pays off. Villanova swings the ball around the horn to Slater, who's just 3 for 13 on the year. Villanova's Jermaine Samuels has been the guy throughout his career that teams have dared to shoot in situations like the one we just saw. He's 30% from behind the arc this season and 32% for his career. And just like Robinson Earl, Samuels took a season-high 8 threes against Kansas. Selectively picking your help and rotations based on personnel is a huge part for a defense with the style of Kansas. So on this game-deciding play, Dotson followed the overall game plan with the short closeout, but Samuels made him pay and beat the game plan with the biggest shot of the game.